welcome to Chazin-the-Dream, a little old podcast dedicated to amazing people who are doing great things out in the world and helping to build amazing organizational cultures. My name is Ethan Chazin. I'd love to introduce you to today's guest, Samantha Wilson, who's the founder of Witchcraft Creative, a social enterprise that produces books to fund nonprofits and social enterprises. Samantha leads a small but mighty all-female team, and their first production is entitled Homemade, which tells a truly remarkable story of a former drug addict, chef turned dog rescuer, and the incredible home of second chances that he's built for strays of all kinds, both animal and human, which is set to launch this International Dog Day, which is August 26th. So without further ado, welcome to Chasing the Dream, Samantha.
Hi, Ethan. It's so good to be with you today.
So I already kind of set up the audience on your background and experience, but I do want to ask, can you share with us what led you to witchcraft? Like, how did that come about?
It's a really good question, and it's a really long story. And I'm going to try to provide the Spark Notes version as best I can.
That's okay.
It was 2010, and I was in Wisconsin, tiny small town Wisconsin called Lake Mills, right between Milwaukee and Madison, off of I-94. I was literally living between a cheese factory and a brewery. So like super typical small town girl Wisconsin life. And I was working as a receptionist at a hair salon at the time, and I had a day off, and I, for some reason, decided I was going to watch some documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
And the documentaries that I had chosen were on the animal agriculture industry. And I had no idea when I woke up that morning that that day would be the very last time that I ever had like cheese or dairy or meat. What I had learned in those couple of documentaries completely rocked my world, and it introduced me to activism for the very first time. So I took all of that and I dove in, and which was really weird because like in Wisconsin in 2012, the word vegan, no one had heard of this. Like people know what vegan is now because it started to like gain some traction around 2017, 2018. But back then, everybody was like, I don't understand. What do you mean? Like, you
In
don't eat meat?
Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin, right. They were
Yeah.
like, you don't eat meat? Like, not even cows, but bacon, no. But like, why, why, I don't understand. It was a whole thing. Nobody got it. And then when I was like, yeah, and I don't eat cheese either. Minds were blown everywhere. And I was just like, picking up the mess. But fast forward, and I had gotten involved in some activist groups, and I really started learning about activism as a culture and a lifestyle. And then at one point, I decided I really want to take this further, and I wanted to go deeper into like ethical values. And so I kind of discovered this idea of conscious consumerism, which essentially is using your dollars as a vote for the kind of world that you want to live in.
Right.
And I'd gone on the internet and I was searching for ethical, fair trade, vegan, eco-friendly clothing. Okay. I couldn't find anything that I thought was cute or affordable. And so I said, okay, well, I'm just going to make my own. So I quit my job and I bought a one-way ticket to India, and I flew to India. I slept in an ashram in New Delhi. And I studied the fashion industry at an ethical cut and sew factory. And I learned how to design clothes in a zero waste fashion. And I learned the difference between ethical and fair trade labor practices and non-ethical practices, which is, fast fashion. Mm-hmm. And I traveled through India and I saw with my own eyes what was happening in this industry that we vote for every day, every time we go to Walmart. That's or every time we go to Zara, Forever 21, all of it, right? And I had seen women and men and children who had sewn over their own fingers because they're forced to produce so many articles of clothing in one day, and they make the equivalent of less than US dollars per day. And they don't get bathroom breaks, and they don't get lunch breaks, and there's no air conditioning. And, even for them to stop for like a drink of water is threatening their ability to make enough money to live. And then I had also seen how like leather, for example, the meat industry and the fashion industry don't talk to each other. So it's not like we're slaughtering these cows for the meat industry and then going ahead and using their skin for the leather industry. That's not happening. It's two separate beasts, and it's so much waste, and what it's doing for the planet because of the methane and the amount of land that it takes to raise all of these animals. And obviously, the consumption that they have of water and grain, most of our food that we're growing going towards raising these animals instead of feeding people. And of course the practice of slaughtering them is insanely cruel. Right. And I had seen that, and then I had also seen as like dye water, the water using in the dyeing process of the fabrics being what's the word I'm looking for? Pushed, dumped, there it is. Okay. Dumped into local rivers and drinking water supplies. So now we're in this huge country, and New Delhi, it's probably larger now, but at the time in 2015, 2016, it was about 14 million people just in Delhi alone. And they're wearing masks because the pollution there is so intense that you cannot breathe in without, blowing your nose and then having completely black Kleenex.
And I was there in 2007, 2008 when we took my daughter to visit. So I remember even at the time what it was like to be oriented in that kind of environment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's not, it's not the people. It has nothing to do with them. This is the world that we're voting for because of our shopping habits, because we're constantly like, we need new pieces, new models, new clothes, rotating every 2 weeks. Fast fashion is now every 2 weeks, where at one time it was one new line a quarter, one new line a year. And now we're demanding fresh new designs every 2 weeks. So of course, this is what's happening.
But so help me understand. So you're in India and you're learning how to make this environmentally friendly clothing with the zero waste, as you said, and then you come back and start Witchcraft, or was there kind of like intervals or additional steps? Like, how did that play out till you got to this point where you said, I'm going to kind of support people through Witchcraft?
Yes. So I came back to the States, and I took everything that I learned and I threw it into a presentation, and I started traveling across the United States, talking at different conferences and festivals about what I had learned, and really just trying to educate on the power of purchasing and conscious consumerism. And I knew that I was going to need some deeper marketing skills in order to do this. So I got myself a job at an award-winning marketing company, having no idea what I was doing, but I'm like a pretty good bullshitter, so I was able to pretend like I knew what I was doing. But he took a chance on me, and I picked up some marketing skills, and then somewhere in there, this is like a strange kind of aside, but my bachelor's degree is in physical education.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, exercise physiology. And I was also teaching group fitness, and I had like my personal training certificate and all the things. And this was like my side hustle. So I used this experience to learn how to run a business. And I had actually for a little while opened up pre-COVID my own fitness studio while I was working at the marketing place, so that I could learn how to market and how to run a business. So then COVID came and I shut down the business and I left that job and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And I got my master's degree in positive psychology because, what's the one thing you need to know in order to have influence is psychology. And I dove right into that.
And by the way, there's a strong correlation between understanding the central kind of tenets of psychology and influencing behavior, which is marketing.
Which is how I got into my PhD program. Great segue, Ethan.
Which is to talk a little bit about your PhD.
So the program I'm currently in, and I have a ways to go, but it's beautiful, is transformative social change. And my emphasis is on studying narratives and how do we use the power of words to influence pro-social behavior? How do we move people from a state of willful ignorance to a state of engagement and action? And how do we do it in a way that makes action pleasurable? Because I think there's so much taboo around the idea of activism that people automatically think of, great leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. But they also think, in the same coin, assassinated and all of the struggles that this man went through to lift up one of the most important social movements. And there's a fear of getting into activism because of these taboos. So we have to, change the narratives around activism. And that's where my emphasis comes in and kind of how we get to witchcraft. So I'm studying these narratives and at the same time, I had for a couple of years, starting with my master's degree program, had been doing a lot of research around marketing messaging and the correlation between marketing messaging and eating disorders and disordered eating and mental health in women and girls. And I wrote a book about it. I never published it, but I wrote a book about it called How Dare They? And I had submitted this to what I thought was a traditional publisher because everything on their website, I was actually personally introduced to these people by someone that had a book with them. And it turns out that by the end of a very long and lengthy interview process, this publisher was like, okay, yes, we'd love to do your book. Please pay us $60,000.
Yeah.
And then you should also please pay us $8,000 a month for coaching, writing coaching. And then you need your own marketing plan.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What? This is so bizarre. And then they also wanted the majority of my royalties, right? So.
Right. Which I went through when I published my first book, because we've transitioned societally from traditional publishing companies to everything is self-published, that everybody can claim to be an author, but they don't promote the significant positive social impact of a lot. I mean, we're talking about a decade and a half of your work, your passion.
Exactly. And it's so impossible to get in front of people because of these strange models. And like even to get on a bestsellers list, here's something that like people don't know because why?
Unless they try to go down the road you went down.
Exactly. So with bestsellers lists, what happens is the bestsellers demand that your sales has to come from a diverse group of different retailers, online or in person, but they cannot all be from a similar place. So even if an author were to sell 15,000 copies in a day on their own website, that would not qualify them for a bestseller list, even if somebody else on the list only sold $5,000. It has to be evenly distributed. But what this does is it forces authors to go through KDP, Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Target.com, et cetera, so that Jeff Bezos can get his cut. So instead of an author making $10 per book, now they're down to $2 per book.
Yep.
And if they did have help, they might have to split that with whoever they have. A literary agent or whatever.
Yeah.
So you throw all of your creative energy and your love into a piece of art because that's what books are. They are art, and you end up like getting nothing for it. And I just thought, this is terrible. How do we flip this on its head? How do we use this medium, this beautiful piece of art that has the power to change worlds and use it towards social good. And that's how witchcraft was created. And so the whole idea behind Witchcraft is a social impact company that uses books to fund social impact. So we produce our own books. It's a production company at its core, where we go out and we find the story that we know is going to change people and be emotional and relate to people. And we produce the story, and then we market it, and we do the PR, and we sell it. And then the royalties go to the author.
Question. Ooh, pick me. The question is, so that's the genesis of Witchcraft and the vision and the mission and all of your values, clearly, which you started sharing the story going back to 2010 in little old Wisconsin. And my question is, homemade.
Yeah.
As the manifestation, as you being so excited that you're birthing your first child, so to speak.
I am. This
Talk about that.
baby.
Let's talk about it, because this is the manifestation of kind of the last 2 decades for you.
Yes. Oh, you just give me chills, Ethan. I've not thought about it like that before. Yes.
Well, this is not my first rodeo. This is one of the many things we share. Is I spent 20 years in marketing, and I started as a copywriter. So let's dive into homemade and kind of how you discovered this project and what it means for you.
It means everything to me. So after this whole weird vanity press publishing experience, me knowing that I wanted to create a social impact company and I wanted nothing more than to be a social entrepreneur, I just was like scrolling Instagram and like, isn't this how so many stories start? I was just scrolling through Instagram, just doom scrolling. And I follow all kinds of different nonprofits and social impact leaders, and because that's just kind of what I want to fill my world with, and good news, hopefully. And I came across an account that was called TMTRD.org and TMTRD.org, and that is the Man That Rescues Dogs organization.
Yep.
And I started watching their videos and the transformations of these dogs that they saved from the streets of Thailand, and noticed how so many of these dogs were actually in wheelchairs. And I thought, that's interesting.
Can you, even though you're saying it, can you paint a visual picture for the uninitiated? Because I've watched the videos, but can you share it with the audience what that was actually like as you're watching the videos? Because it's stunning.
It is absolutely stunning. So picture 8,000 square meters of Thailand, and there's royal palms surrounding, and there is a large building with multiple shelters, and some of these shelters have tarps covering, and some of them have like bamboo covering. And in the front of this shelter is a giant pond. It's like a runoff pond because the shelter is located inside of a landfill.
Mm-hmm.
And in front of that pond is a Chinese cemetery. And it's funny, the author always jokes about how it's the best location because the neighbors are super quiet and they don't mind the barking of the dogs. And surrounding this sanctuary is a big gravel path, and it weaves and it winds through this, beautiful, lush, green fields of cassava, rows and rows of cassava. And all of a sudden, a metal gate opens and out runs 44 wheelchair-bound dogs experiencing their limitlessness. And they're howling in joy and awe and gratitude together. And it's an F1 start at first, where, Jessica's eyes are narrowing in as on the lock. And as it opens, you see her ears start to turn towards the lock because she knows what's happening. And then Goya is the one, she's bouncing up and down. She's so excited to go. And Scooter gets in line, and it's kind of a mess at first, but then they start to fall in line with each other, and they find their friends, and they find their favorite volunteer, and they find their favorite staff member, and off they go. 2 times a day, they do they go on these glorious walks, and they go and they find the muddiest pits and the clearest, shiniest waters, and they swim and they chase sticks in their wheelchairs, and they play and they have fun as any normal dog would.
And the thing that I wanted to jump in on is then the connection between the man who rescues dogs and the story of the dog. So we understand, these not wheelchair, but harness dogs kind of being able to live their best doggy lives and experience those doggy moments. But now kind of shifting to how you met the man who rescues them and how this became this formative first project for you and your team.
Yeah. So Michael Baines is the founder and president of the Man That Rescues Dogs, and he is the man that rescues dogs. Yeah. He is a Swedish, he's actually Scottish born, but grew up in Sweden, entrepreneur and former chef. He actually climbed the ranks to the point where he was invited on Iron Chef Thailand, and competed on Iron Chef Thailand. And a huge part of his story is that he was, as a young child, he was bullied, and from this sort of a family of divorce where his father left when they were young, and then his mom remarried, and the person that he remarried to was abusive and would beat Michael and his brother, and so he grew up in this, he was bullied, and eventually he, at one point, in his culinary career, he was offered speed for the first time. And he grew addicted to drugs, and he was an alcoholic at the same time. And so, the story is of his turning his pain into purpose, and of how he found the first dog, outside of his restaurant, and started feeding these dogs, and how one dog turned to 2, which turned to 3, which turned to him taking these dogs into his own home. And I think he has 14 dogs just in his home right now. And then he starts feeding them along his route to work, to and fro, a couple of times a day. And all of a sudden he's the man that rescues dogs, and he has to make a choice, feed dogs or feed people. And he chose the dogs. And what he ended up doing was he created this sanctuary, this home of second chances. And one of the things you find out in the book is that it's not just a home of second chances for him, but for the dogs, but for the people that come and work there too. And they have incredible stories. People leaving domestic abuse situations and finding the sanctuary. A former bank robber from New Jersey finding the sanctuary after doing time in prison, and he is the most beautiful, gentle, loving soul you will ever meet in your life. And this is what Michael created, and so I saw this. Not all of that. I didn't know all of that at the time. I just knew the dogs. I saw this man, and I was like, there is something here. So I sent them an Instagram message, and I very vividly remember the day that I was like, I feel like I'm in a moment where I can shoot my shot, or I can stay small and safe. But I shot. I went for it. I sent the message, and then after some back and forth and lovely chit chat, I get on a call with Michael, and I said, "Hi, Michael. So good to meet you. Thank you for everything that you do for the dogs. I just discovered you, and I've been following you for a couple of weeks, and I really wanted to reach out and say that I'd love to write a book about you. Well, I want to help you write a book about you."
Right.
And he said to me, "I've been asked to do this many times before, and I've always said no." And he said, but do you think now is the right time? And I said, Michael, now's the only time. Mm-hmm. And after some convincing, he said, okay, Samantha, I trust you, in that very first meeting. And I was like, why? Why? You have no reason to trust me. I'm a nobody. I've never done this before, you know? And, but that's the story, right? I'm just another one of Michael's second chances. I'm just another one of the people that he gave a purpose to. And so I figured out how I was going to fund this, because I said, well, obviously I'm doing this. I'm going to pay for it. I figured out how to fund it. And I hired a team, and we all went over to Thailand, and we spent a couple of weeks volunteering and playing with the dogs and going on the wheelchair mafia walks. The wheelchair mafia is the loving nickname given to the wheelchair.
The wheelchair mafia.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And they're like a TikTok famous gang of dogs. It's pretty incredible. Actually, earlier this year, the Mr. Beast Philanthropy did a video on them, and it will move you to tears for sure.
So, I mean, just to kind of be sensitive to kind of the genesis of the story, because we're both in the business of storytelling, to kind of get support from people who are listening and say, I want to learn more, I want to support this, and I want to find out from Samantha also what's next for her. Can we kind of like do a little bit of that? Because watching your face glow and light up as you're kind of talking about, and being so humble to say, why did he choose me? And I'm one of his reclamation projects. I think there's much more to it than that. And I think you're being very self-deprecating, but
I appreciate that. And that warms my heart and gives me a little bit of confidence. But it's true. I needed somebody to take a chance on me, and knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I could do it. And I needed somebody to say, okay, I trust you. And now here we are. Homemade is launching on August 26th of this year. So we've got 9 weeks to go.
And how would people find it, support it, buy it? And I'm going to put all of that down below, but how can people kind of support this?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking that. So you can go to heywitchcraft.com, and the page is right there. It's a beautiful landing page all about the book, describing the characters, and you can sign up for updates on if there's going to be a cover reveal. And we're also running a drawing, I guess, right now. If you sign up for updates, then we are sponsoring one lucky person to go to Thailand and meet Michael and the Wheelchair Mafia in person. So
wow.
We're sponsoring a trip for somebody to go. So if you sign up for the emails, you'll be automatically entered into that. And then, of course, we bring lots of behind the scenes content on this production, and funny stories of, about how, like, Maggie, one of our lead editor, she was like terrified of the dogs, and then one of them bit her, but then she ended up becoming, like, not hard, like she didn't get hurt, but she ended up, like, we now sponsor that dog. We actually sponsor three of the wheelchair dogs over there. But yeah, you can go to heywitchcraft.com and learn more and sign up for updates, and then it's going to be launching on August 26th, and you can buy it direct from our website.
And so, just kind of in the interest of kind of making sure we cover all our bases, so what's next for Samantha and Hey Witchcraft, and people who want to reach out to you and have a kind of deeper dive conversation, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, just a simple email, Samantha@heywitchcraft.com. Or if there's anybody listening that's in the media, you can get in contact with our PR lead, which is Caroline. It's Caroline@heywitchcraft.com. Or anybody listening that wants to do a partnership or a collab, Maggie@heywitchcraft.com is our marketing lead. And we are a small but mighty team of 3, obviously all women, leading this charge. And what's next for us is so exciting. A couple more projects that are so near and dear to our hearts. One of them is a project with an organization called Safe Babe, and that's Safe, BAE, which stands for Before Anyone Else. And it is an organization. They're the only youth and survivor led grassroots organization in the United States that talks to K through 12, a lot of focus on middle and high school about sexual assault prevention, dating violence prevention, consent or refusal skills, and then, can help seek justice should anything have happened to you or a family member, a son or a daughter, or anyone. I shouldn't gender my language there, but anyone. So we were helping Shale Norris. She's the founding executive director who used to work at a giant organization called V-Day. And part of Shale's background is she actually she worked on the production side, I think maybe the costuming side of the off-Broadway show, The Vagina Monologues. Which,
okay.
and then she went on to help found this organization, Safe Bay. And if you're curious to learn more about Safe Bay, obviously safebay.org is their website, but there is a documentary on Netflix. It's called Audrey and Daisy, and it tells the story of particularly one of the founders, Daisy Poland.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Daisy is no longer with us, but her legacy lives on in Safe Bay. And they're carrying this giant load in heavy work. But the way that Shale describes it in her work in the book is heartwarming, heart-wrenching, and also hilarious. The way she brings humor and lightness to this really is very encouraging for other people to step into this work too. And the book kind of showcases why she cares about these things and the experiences she's had in these things, and highlights the voices of survivors. And, there's even a section in which those who have survived but have never been able to share their story with anyone can write down their story and be a part of this movement. So that's one of them, the Safe Bay book. It's untitled yet, no title revealed just yet. And then another project that is so near and dear to my heart that we've done some traveling for as well, is we are writing another original book called The Diaries of the Raging Grannies.
The Diaries of the Raging what?
Grannies.
Grannies. Oh boy. And this is all on Hey Witchcraft?
It will be. It will be. So right now our focus on heywitchcraft.com for the next couple of weeks is on The Man That Rescues Dogs. But come August 19th, our larger sort of website launches, and people will be able to find out more about these other books as well.
Okay. Well,
although our newsletter does share some of these insights as well.
Well, do you feel comfortable that I put the link to sign up on your newsletter?
Please. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that as well. So all the information you've kind of touched on, the contact information, the projects, it'll be in the description below for anybody who wants to check out Samantha or reach out to her and or her team members. But Samantha, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come on Chazin-the-Dream and share what the work you're doing, which is literally your passion of love. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, no. Thank you for giving me a platform to be able to share my story. And Ethan, you are such a bright light in this world, and you have such a vibrant energy about you. And I always, have felt that way. And then I had the privilege of joining one of your groups, and I got to see how everyone lights up when they're in your presence. And it's so obvious how much respect and appreciation that the people in your circle have for you. And it's kind of rare to see. You are such a bright and shining light, and so incredibly knowledgeable. You know conscious capitalism. You understand conscious consumerism. We've had the talks about the roots of charity and the Puritans and nonprofit industrial complex models. And you know it all. You're an impressive human being, and such a beautiful ally to our work, and just thank you for being such a bright soul.
We did not talk about this. I did not ask you to say any of that, and so I really appreciate it. But it's interesting just to kind of sidebar into what you and I do, and what we consider ourselves fortunate enough to do is to kind of take some of our own experiences personally and to kind of pay it forward in a way that impacts the people that we can reach. And that's why I really got excited when you and I started talking, and you were talking about Hey Witchcraft and talking about some of the projects that you were going to do. And I didn't understand the genesis of the focus on using the book format to kind of promote these phenomenal causes because of your own experiences that you went through from the self-publishing. That's another way in which you and I share so much background experiences of my having kind of gone through self-publishing on 2 books, that just share as much as we can. So thank you for the kind words. And without further ado, I'm going to put all of your information below so folks can reach out to you. And thank you again for coming on Chazin-the-Dream.
And thank you, Ethan. It's such an honor to be in your world and in your presence. And I always leave with such good energy after our conversations. And that's quite a credit to you. So I hope you receive that.
Thank you.
Thank you.